Thanks for tuning in to Let Fear Bounce. What are we going to be doing here? We're going to be tossing out nuggets of hope. And who the heck am I? My name is Kim Langling, and I will be your host, and I am so glad that you're joining me today. So sit back, relax, grab that cup of coffee, and let's get this show started. Have you ever thought about what will happen to your pet should you no longer be able to care for them or if you pass away? Life Pet Care is the world's first pet care administration company, and they provide do-it-yourself pet estate will kits. Now, these are legal document, folks. They are considered an amendment or a codicil that you add directly to your personal will. You can access this by visiting kimlanglingauthor.com. Scroll down until you see Life Pet Care. Click on that link and you will get 33% off of that do-it-yourself pet estate will kit. Now, folks, it's just $29.99, but if you click that link, you will get 33% off. Let's make sure that our furry loved ones are taken care of if, for whatever reason, we are no longer able to care for them. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is Kim Langling, your host, and I am so pleased that you are spending just a small part of your day with my special guest today, Randi Lee Bowslaugh. She was born and raised in Ontario, Canada, and from a young age, she has had a passion for helping others. She is also an author and an outspoken advocate for mental health, sharing her true story with honesty. From the age of 14, she has struggled with depressive thoughts. Depression continues to be a battle in her life, but she is glad that she continues to live. She also has a YouTube channel, The Ride or Die Show, that she uses to help spread awareness about various mental health issues and to end the stigma associated with mental health. And here's another little fun thing that I just got a big kick out of, pun intended. Another of Randi Lee's passions is kickboxing, which she's been doing for about 10 years. She was the Canadian national champion in kickboxing in 2015 and competed at the world's kickboxing tournament later that year. And in 2016, competed in the Pan Am Games, where she received a silver medal in her division. So look at you rocking, being a badass. You're an author, a mental health advocate. Gosh, what else can you squeeze into that schedule of yours, Randi?
YouTube host, mother, wife, grandmother, pet owner,
grandmother. Let's squeeze that in. Yeah, because that's not nothing small.
Right? That doesn't take any time at all.
Right. Well, welcome to Let Fear Bounce. I've been looking forward to this. I've been a guest on your show a couple times, so it's pretty exciting to have you on the other side of the mic, and you're my guest today. So welcome.
Thanks. I know I was looking forward to this too. I love when people come on my show and then they're like, "Oh, I have a show too." I'm like, "Oh, so cool."
Yay. Spread the love, spread the love.
That's right.
Now, I want to hop onto your author journey because I found it interesting and quite fascinating, actually. You write in 3 different genres: nonfiction, fiction, and children's books. So which one started for you? Which one got you into the writing bug?
Nonfiction. So my first book was actually the poems that I had written as a teenager when I was going through depression the first time. And then I had found them when I was cleaning out the basement. I went, I don't want to throw them out, but like they're just sitting here doing nothing. So I put them in a book and I was like, I like this whole writing books thing. I kept going.
So poetry. That's how you started.
That's how I started.
Now, is it that angsty teenage kind of poetry? Kind of, I guess, is what you just kind of alluded to.
100% is that angsty, really super dark. It was literally, and this is why I call my show The Write or Die Show, because it literally saved my life to write out what I was thinking of doing to myself.
That is a very powerful thing right there. Writing out. Because you're getting it out, you're letting it out. Yeah, exactly. And that is so big. And, at the age of 14, when you were doing that, maybe it was unconsciously that you didn't realize that was actually helping you, but you were just doing it because you needed to get it out. Was that the case, or how did that come
Pretty
about?
much. Yeah, that's exactly how you said it. And at the time I didn't know it was depression. I just thought everybody feels like they shouldn't still be here. Um, it wasn't until later when I was learning about mental health in college that I was like, oh, I'm depressed.
And that's a heavy burden. Depression can be a heavy burden, especially when you don't realize that's what it is. I know I've talked to folks, and myself, I live with depression too. I live with PTSD, and depression and anxiety goes right along with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know before I realized or came to the conclusion that that's what it was, you feel very isolated personally. Like, no one gets it. You feel very, very stuck in your bubble. Was it like that for you at such a young age?
Yeah, it very much was. And we didn't talk about that stuff back then. So we're talking, so a teenager, early 2000s, which doesn't seem like that long because we're still in the 2000s, but the time was so very, very different back then. And I feel so old saying that, but you didn't talk about this stuff. And growing up in my house, we had my stepfather, he was an alcoholic. My brother was in and out of jail. He also was into drugs. And so we didn't talk about drugs. We didn't talk about alcohol. We didn't talk about the yelling, the abuse. So why would I have talked about depression when I was basically taught by, living in that household, you don't talk about that stuff.
You just roll with it the best you can and survive.
Pretty much.
That's a tough one, and I've been in that same situation that you were describing.
Yeah.
And I know many, many, many others have. And I often sit there and go, I turned out all right for having
right? Exactly.
for having grown up with some of that stuff. Jeez Louise. So your first book the first book that you put together was your teenage poetry, which I think is awesome. And then let's see here, nonfiction, Thoughts of a Wanderer.
That's the one. Yep.
That's your poetry. A Mother's Truth.
That'd be the second one. That's about raising my kid with autism.
Okay. Oh my gosh. We could be on here forever.
I
And
know.
Embracing Me is your third one.
Yeah. So that one came out, 2021, I want to say. And that one is about my journey with depression, but not in poetry styles.
Not in verse.
Exactly. And all my poetry, I love poetry, and some poets might hate me for saying this, but it has to rhyme for me. Like it has to rhyme for me to be like, yes, that's such good poetry. I know it doesn't technically in my head, like I know it doesn't, but like it does.
I have found that I'm able to fall into a poem because I love to fall into stories, whether it's nonfiction, fiction, music, same thing. But with poetry, I found that if it rhymes, at least some of it rhymes, I'm able to fall into it more.
Yeah, I think
it's a mental thing. However, it's like the rhyme or the rhythm of it.
Yes, that's what it is for me too. And like, those are my favorite kind when they just rhyme.
Have you ever tried your hand at writing haikus?
Only in school when I was forced to.
I love it. I love haikus. I went to a writers conference a few years back, and one of the sessions was a professional haikuist. I don't even know what you would call that, but she'd been doing it for years and years, multi published, and she taught that at the college level. And the way that she taught it was how to really tighten up your writing. So she said, write haikus, pick one word and write a haiku about it using the 5-7-5, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. For those of you listening that might not know what a haiku is, first line is 5 syllables long, not 5 words, 5 syllables. Second is 7. The third line is 5, and that's it. But you have to make it very succinct. And I started doing that as practice exercises to tighten up my writing. But then I realized this is really fun, because I would just pick a word, or I'd look around and, be like doorknob, and I'd write a haiku about a doorknob to it's fun. I was just wondering if anybody else did that, or if it's just me being wonky.
Well, I haven't heard of anyone else doing that. And I've talked to a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that they don't. It just means I don't know them.
I think it's fun. Try it. Give it a try. Give it a try.
I might, I'm not going to guarantee I might one day, but I usually write poetry when I'm emotional. I don't know what it is. Like when I'm emotional, every thought comes out in a poem kind of format. And so that's usually how those come to be.
Oh, I understand that. I think all creatives, no matter what type of medium you're creative in, a lot of that creativity comes from trauma, loss, grief, what have you. A lot of that, this is just my perception, stems from that. And, I look back on my journey and I'm thinking, if I hadn't gone through a lot of the stuff that I went through, there's no way I could write what I write today.
100%. Yeah. Especially like a good chunk of my books are nonfiction. So obviously.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So moving on to fiction, we've got a fiction book called A Little Scare. What's that one all about?
It's a collection of short, scary stories. I love all things horror. I love watching horror movies. Oh, reading like Stephen King and stuff when I was younger is what really got me into liking books. So yeah, it's just like a collection of short, scary stories. And actually yesterday I was talking to my kid and he loves all things horror too. So then he started going on this thing about the 7 deadly sins. And I don't know, I think he was watching some anime about it or something. I was only half listening. That parent nod. Oh yeah, yes. Okay, that's so interesting. Yep. And then I was like, you know what would be cool if we did a 7 deadly sins short scary story, and each story is one of the sins, because he does art, so he would draw the picture and I would write the story, which is in that book, A Little Scared. That's what it is. Each story starts with a picture and he drew them.
Oh, how awesome. Yeah. What a cool thing. And what a cool, that's kind of like a legacy lever,
Right? I think so. I hope so.
Yeah. Years and years down the road, you can look back or he can look back, whatever. Grandkids could look back and say, look, they did this together. How cool is that? That's awesome. That's awesome. Now you've got a couple children's books as well, because you're a busy lady. So we've got Operation Deck the Halls and Diamond the Cat are your children's books. Share a little bit about those.
I think I need to update this because there's actually more books, but that's okay. So Operation Deck the Halls, it's a Christmas book.
I never would have guessed.
I know,
never
right?
would have guessed that one.
It's a big surprise. I know. But it's kind of based on a true story that happened. So it's about a little girl who can't fall asleep and she's scared that Santa won't make it for Christmas. So Christmas has to happen kind of in a different way. And basically what happened, my kid wouldn't fall asleep this one year and my husband went and decorated the entire basement and Christmas went downstairs.
So when she came down on the normal level that she would anticipate, there was nothing there.
Yeah. Because they just wouldn't fall asleep. So it was pretty cool. So yeah, that's where that one came from. Although in the book there's elf magic and like it's
of
much
course
more
there's magic.
Obviously. And then Diamond the Cat is again sort of based on reality because it's about my cat that I had for 19 years. Diamond. She was, because a diamond is a girl's best friend. I used to say that all the time. I still miss her. She passed away a few years ago and she was just like my most precious baby. But so that one, it's all rhyming again. And it's just really short. It's for like the really younger kids. So it's like, my name is Diamond. I'm a cat. I like to lay on my bed.
Yeah.
Right. Simple. Yeah. So yeah.
Those ones, I always found those ones the funnest to read to my daughter when she was just a little thing.
Yeah, kids really like that. And it helps them, really helps them to learn how to read, right? When you can see like cat mat. Oh, right. I see that AT sound. It has different words, right?
Right.
It's not even like a conscious thing that you have to teach them, but as they like, because you're reading it to them and they're looking at the book and looking at the picture and the words, they can kind of, it's good.
Yep. And I can't stress enough how important it is to read to your kiddos when they're young. Mm-hmm. I'm an avid reader, always have been, still am. I read at least 2 books a week. But when my daughter was little, I read to her every night, during the day, whenever. We would go through so many books. We were at the library every week. when people would go to the library,
Right. Yeah. Back on the door.
but it was an adventure to go to the library because it was so magical.
Well, and there
All
was so
these
many
books.
different things there.
Yes. And the smell, and you'd go down into the children's area and there'd always be something going on. And then I remember my daughter's face and how her eyes would get so big, no matter how many times we went, when we got into the children's area, and it would just be wall after wall of books. And she would just be like, Mommy, look at all the books.
Well,
and I'd
that's
be like, I
awesome.
know it's going to be so hard to choose which ones to take home this week,
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, we read, so when my kid was younger, we read The Jolly Postman, which if you don't know what that book is, you need to get that book for whatever child is in your life because they're amazing. So it was like The Jolly Postman and More Letters, and then Jolly Postman Saves Christmas. There was 3 of them. And it was just so cool because like in that book, the postman's delivering mail and you can actually pull the mail out of the book. And so you're actually delivering mail to like say, and it was all fairy tale creatures, right? So like Little Red Riding Hood and stuff. And sometimes it would be like, I remember the one is a little puzzle. So you could actually put the puzzle together because that's what they were getting in their parcel. And so it was just so, oh my gosh. So yeah, every child needs the Jolly Postman. I cannot stress that enough.
I'd never heard of the Jolly Postman.
It was a favorite of mine when I was little. So as soon as I had my kid, I was like, gotta get these books. I love them. And now my grandson, he's only 3, so he doesn't sit long enough for it because it is a bit of a lengthy read if you read every single letter that comes in the book, right? But it was so funny because we would read it, and Lev preferred when my husband read it because he did better voices than I did.
Well, you have to do the voices. That's
I
right.
did the voices, but apparently my husband's were just better.
No, I made a note of that. The Jolly Postman. I've not heard of that.
Oh, it's so worth it. I absolutely love it. Totally recommend it. I get absolutely no royalties from this when you buy it. So I'm telling the truth.
So is this a Canadian author?
I have no idea, to be honest.
I'll hop online and see where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, I just ordered mine on Amazon. I just remembered reading them when I was a kid. So like they had them in our school library.
Awesome. And now you're writing your own children's books. How cool is that? How cool is that?
Cool.
So do you have any books in the works right now that are sitting on the burner?
Of course I do. So like I said, I do have to update that list because I just had a book come out in May that is not on your list. So first I'm going to tell you about that. It's called Goodbye Too Soon, and that is about my brother's death by drug overdose. So 2 years ago he died. So that was my newest nonfiction, just came out in May. So everybody go pick it up. But
well, absolutely. It's called Goodbye. It's called Goodbye Tuesday.
Too Soon.
Oh, Too Soon. I'm sorry. Okay.
I talk too fast. But right now I'm actually in the process of, I have 2 children's books that I'm in the process of writing right now. Well, I shouldn't say writing. One I'm illustrating, one my kid is illustrating. The one my kid is illustrating has been written for over a year. And he just takes a really long time to get the pictures done, but that's okay. It's coming. That is called Woofy Says Goodbye. And so Woofy is a stuffed dog. And he goes home with different kids because he lives in a classroom. So he goes home with different kids. There is one other Woofy book that is already out, which again, see, I got to update my list. But so Woofy Goes to the Hospital was the first one. And so Woofy goes to the hospital with this little boy and he's getting his tonsils out. So he helps him be brave. And so this one, Woofy goes home with a little girl who has a hamster and the hamster dies. So he has to help her be brave through their little mini funeral that they have for the hamster. So my kid is working on those pictures. They look really good. I think he's only got like 3 or 4 left to do for it. But so that one's coming. And then the other one is, and I haven't totally landed on a name yet, but it's probably going to be something like Neo Finds a Home. So it is about my 3-legged kitty cat. And how he finally gets adopted. It's all rhyming again, back to rhyming. And so right now I've illustrated the first 3 pages, so I've got like a bunch left.
Well, you're keeping very, very busy, very busy. So, and outside of that, you also have your own YouTube channel, the Writer, and a show on there. It's the Write or Die Show. Yes. And that, what you came about that, you started that in 2021. you started the Write or Die show. What made you, what kind of nudged you in that direction? You're like, you know what, I'm going to do a YouTube show.
Well, when I was little, I was going to be a famous actor. Clearly that hasn't quite happened, but we're still working on it. And obviously I like talking and sharing and meeting different people. So it just made sense to do that. And because I really love talking about mental health, I obviously had to be around mental health. So I interview other authors, we talk about mental health. And we've now got over 150 episodes.
How awesome. That's
And
exciting stuff.
And you have 2 of them.
Yeah, and I'm 2 of those. Yes. Yeah. I'm around the same thing. I think I'm around 163 or 64 episodes.
Very
I think
nice.
we probably started our shows around the same time. So
could be.
It's an amazing journey to do that. And for whatever reason, my show, the Let Fear Bounce, that you're on right now, it just so happens that I would say 85% of my guests are authors. It wasn't planned that way. It just turns out that way. And I just find it fascinating. And I love hearing other people's journeys. And yours is incredibly fun to hear because you write in 3 different genres. I mean, they're so different from each other.
I love talking about mental health. So that's like where I get a lot of it from, but they're such heavy books that I have to do something else in between them. Like I just kind of like, when I do the scary stuff or I do the kids books, it kind of resets my brain and gets me out of that really tough, hard mental health mindset. Cause whenever I'm writing them, I mean, the first draft usually comes with tears.
Oh, I believe it. I've been there, done that. Yeah,
exactly. So I got to do something else to lighten the mood.
Yeah, it can be emotionally draining.
Yeah.
No matter what you're writing, I've found it depends on, I guess, where you're at in your writing journey and what it is you're writing about. But of all the folks I've talked to, and I'm sure you've heard something similar, that when you're writing, you kind of fall into it, you lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
And then when you come out of it, you're mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted.
Well, because you went on a journey, just
Right.
like if you were to like journey out in the wilderness, it's tiring.
It is tiring. It is
worth
tiring.
it.
And I think, it's some people, if I've talked, and I have spoken to people that are not authors, they, have no interest in it, but they love to read. And then you try to explain how you fall into it. Sometimes you get these looks like, she's a little crazy.
That's okay. We're all a little crazy.
That's right. That's right. And you have characters in your head, or, because I have a book I've been working on for quite a while, and I've had these little characters in my head. I know what they look like. I know what their accents are. I know the kind of clothes that they wear, and they're just in my head. And I'll get these little pops of conversation, and I'll be like, oh, I've got to write that down. Yeah. So, do you have any type of things that spurs your imagination or really pushes you and says, oh, I've got to sit down at the computer right now and get that down?
Just life in general. Again, writing nonfiction, that kind of makes sense, life in general. But for the other stuff, it will be just like, say we're walking down the street. So I'm walking my dogs down the street. And this actually happened for one of the books in the scary stories. There's one about people that litter. And so we're walking down the street, and sure enough, there's litter all over the ground. I'm like, I wonder what would happen if, I don't want to give away the whole story, but like, I wonder what would happen if people got punished when they littered. And that's really how it came.
Oh.
Yeah. And so different things like that, just kind of ideas popping to my head. Sometimes it will be my kid. He'll have drawn a picture, and I'll be like, oh, this makes me think of, so there's another one, there's about a circus, and he had drawn this picture, which he ended up deleting, which bugged me because I'm like, I was going to use that picture in the book, but whatever. He does it all the time on me. It's so frustrating. And so he drew this picture of like the top hat guy, like the ringmaster. And so I was like, again, I wonder what would happen if the ringmaster was evil. And so that's just little things like that. I wonder what would happen is really
a
big one.
And then you just let your imagination go.
Yeah.
Cool. Now I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder
Right?
Now you've got my brain going. I'm going to start looking at, I always felt, and I've been told, I see things, I notice things most don't,
Okay.
like little things or little nuances of people or little details that people won't notice. And
Yeah.
those are the little things that spark me.
Okay.
Those things that most don't notice or they take for granted or they just ignore.
Mm-hmm.
The things that most don't see, don't take the time to look at. That's where I'm sparked from. Little things like that. So, people's mannerisms or how they're dressed or how their hair is, or, how a child is, the way that their little hand is holding their parent's hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Little things like that. Like, is he holding on for dear life, or is he just barely holding on, or just holding on to one finger?
Yeah.
Little things like that is what I notice. And those are the types of things that spark me and get like a little storyline going.
Okay.
I'll be like, oh, I've got to get that down. Got to get that down. Cause then it just kind of comes. When it starts coming, it's just coming.
Right. Exactly.
Like, if I don't get this down, I'm going to forget about it.
Yep. Well, that's the great thing about cell phones now. You can just have like the little app and just kind of type it all in there.
I use my voice recorder.
Oh, there you go.
And talk it in there and then type it out later.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep. I thought that was a brilliant idea one day when I was literally out in the woods and it was the middle of winter time, and all of a sudden the storyline came and I'm going, I will not remember this. So I figured it out on my phone in the middle of the woods. So as I'm walking my dog through the snow, I'm, dictating into my phone this story.
Hey, whatever works.
It worked. It worked. Okay. So we're going to get ready to wrap up here because holy cow, a half hour flew by really fast.
It does. But
you've got, all of these, you have all your books, you've got your Write or Die show. Folks, everybody out there listening, all of this stuff will be in the show notes and all the links. So you will be able to check out all her books. Obviously, we want you to check out her show and subscribe while you're there, by golly. She's got a lot of great guests on, and I have listened to numerous episodes of yours, but you've got a lot of great guests on there, and you have an awesome show. So keep on doing what you're doing, lady, because I think you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
So if you would, and I ask all of my guests before we say goodbye, if you could leave my listeners with a little nugget of hope that you could toss out there to them and they could carry away with them for the day.
So I think I'm going to use my slogan that I end my Write or Die show with, because I feel like it's so important that we remember it. And it's the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. And I say that because we don't need to hide who we are. You can have bipolar, you can have depression, you can have PTSD and still be an amazing, awesome person. So there is no need to hide. And so speak openly, speak honestly, be true to yourself.
I like that. Speak openly, and there's no need to hide.
Yeah.
Right there, folks. That's a powerful one. No need to hide. Remember that, all of you out there listening. If you might be in a bit of a bumpy spot right now or in a dark spot, there's no need to hide there and there's no need to stay there, because there is light. There's always, always light. And the world is a better place because you're in it. Don't forget that. Randi, thank you so much for being my guest on Let Fear Bounce. This has been an absolute pleasure and a blessing. And I wish you the best of luck with all of these amazing journeys that you're on with your writing and your YouTube channel. So thank you. Thank you very much for being on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun to be on yours for a change.
Yeah. And we will have to do it again.
We will. I'm sure there's lots more we can talk about.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And everybody out there listening, thanks once again for tuning in to Let Fear Bounce. This is Kim Langling, your host. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed. That wraps up another episode of Let Fear Bounce, folks. Thanks so much for spending a small part of your day with myself and my special guests. I am blessed week by week by the people that I have on my show. I'm also blessed by you for tuning in and listening. And if you want to learn a little bit more about me, you can go to my website at kimlanglingauthor.com and check out everything else I'm doing. I like to keep myself busy. And until next week, folks, everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed. And don't forget, you are amazing.